All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Forest Brothers Podcast. It's your boy Mutsa Chris Don out here in the cut, joined by my two brothers, Nkosi and Samson. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Mtembe. How's it going, sir? Let me actually start with you. How's about you say hello to our people out there, our folks, the Forest Brother family?
Hi to the Forest Podcast, the Forest Brothers Podcast family. I go by Mtembe. You know, a lot of people say Mtembe. A lot of people. If it wasn't even the seniors that were in the same year as Nkosi and Samson, they always said Mtembe. Most of them.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Point of correction, guys. Metembe. I don't know why I've been saying Tembe. I thought the E was silent. All right. Apologies.
The H is silent. The H is silent.
So it's Metembe.
Exactly. Because professors say Metembe, and that's also man. You know, that's also bad. So it's the H that's silent.
Okay, listener, you've heard it here. Metembe. All right. Thank you, fam. Thank you. We appreciate it when people let us know. All right. Nkosi, how about you? And then over to Samson.
Sure thing. Hello to all the Forest Brothers listeners out there. We have a special guest today in Metembe. You should say it right sometimes. So I'd like to greet our special guest here and also greet my two brothers here, Mwari, Samson, and yeah.
Hello, dear listener. Welcome to the Forest Brothers Podcast. Once again, I'm here with my two brothers, Nkosi, Mutsa. Great to see you guys. Great to be here with you guys. Matemba, great to have you on the pod. And really looking forward to a conversation today. Let's get it going.
Yeah, let's get it going indeed. And so, listener, today we decided to have an episode surrounding the O.P.T process. You know, the O.P.T, for those who may not know, is, what can you even call it? It's the work authorization for international students. Once you graduate from college, essentially you apply for the O.P.T if you want to work in the country, in the USA. And depending on the program you took, if you took like a STEM subject, you know, your sciences, your math, all those things, your data science, you get 3 years of O.P.T to work. And then if you took your communications, your English language, whatever's, non-STEM subjects. It also depends on which university you go to. Anyway, you get 1 year of work. So that's what the O.P.T is, essentially. So Matembe right now is currently a senior at Luther College. Actually, Matembe, how's about you give the listeners a little bit of, in a nutshell, who you are, what you're currently doing, what you're studying, where you're from, and so that they have a bit of context in relation to your story before we move forward with the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, sure. I was born in Bulawayo. That's southern Zimbabwe. It's quite big, but relative to the capital, it's a bit smaller, and it's one of those places that is heavily populated by Ndebele people. So that's who I am as well. I'm Ndebele, and came here to the United States, I think 2019. Yeah, 2019 August. Started here at Luther College with a bio major in mind, and I've kept to that up until now. So I'm still doing that, and I'm hoping to graduate with that major by May of this year. So fingers crossed that's a smooth process, and that goes very well. But yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. I don't think there's much to say right now, but as we go, I think I'll let my character sort of spill out. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's more than enough. No, that sounds good. So I guess my first question to you, Matembe, is how's senior year going? Like, how's that been for you right now? Like, what are your current thoughts about, May is coming up very soon. I think you'll be graduating the next 3 months, 2-3 months, so that's coming up very soon. So I just want to understand, like, what's going through your head right now, and what's the experience been as a senior?
Yeah, I think, senior is always, a bit complicated depending how you started, because, like, there's some people who like to do that, like a little bit of early planning and knowing what to do, but sometimes you have plans and plans change over time. similarly, I think I started this year doing something in Rochester, so I was doing a semester away, so I didn't have the full year being on campus. So that sort of like disturbed my flow going into this senior year. But I came back in February after taking some time to go home, and I think that was quite important because it just helped me sort of like recalibrate and come back with a little bit of purpose to say I'm almost at that finish line. Let me just go in and get it done. So the senior year has been a mix of that, like starting in a different place with a whole different focus because I was doing this other internship. So now I'm back in like a more structured classroom setting, and that has had its challenges as well, like getting used to that and being back on campus, and but also having to look at different things while you're at school, like jobs being the biggest one, and also just maintaining your own well-being and connecting friends and family and all of that. So that culminates and makes the whole year to be a bit tumultuous, but I've been okay. I've been okay. I've heard worse stories at such a time, but I think I've tried to remain calm to see what opportunities will come my way, and I'll keep my head down and find myself in a good space. Yeah.
Okay. Before we let you ask us any questions that you may have, because we really want this episode to be a resource to other seniors right now in college as they are, about to transition to school life after college, essentially, whether that be going to grad school, whether that be working, whatever the case may be. But we do want this to be a resourceful episode to our seniors right now in college. And I guess the question that I'll ask you, I know prior we're talking and you said that, you guys have been having a lot of O.P.T chats and you're feeling somewhat overwhelmed, or, there's that in the air. So can you speak a little bit to that? Like, what's that feeling? What are you feeling overwhelmed about?
Right. So I think it's less about applying for the O.P.T, I think, because I think a lot of people would say it's a straightforward process, right? And to be fair to our school, they've tried to support us financially with that application too, so that's great. But I think it's trying to manage the dates to see when you will have a good opportunity. And granted that you don't have to have a job before you apply for it, but trying to know that you have that security that when I do, I will have that job. And if that job is still not there, that you're still eating away into it, regardless of when your start date will be. So that's a big part of what's overwhelming, I think, like not knowing that you've secured a job to back up that O.P.T, because at the end of the day, without the job, it's just a document. And if the document expires before you get your things and your ducks in a row, then you're drowning. So I think that's been the overwhelming part about it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I totally understandable. I think we all went through that. So let me actually open it up to you so you can ask Nkosi, me, Samson, any questions. Or actually, Nkosi or Samson, if you have any comments to what some of these overwhelming things are surrounding what these current seniors are going through. But I just gonna open it up so that you can ask us any questions that you may have, and we'll do our best to answer and provide any useful information out there.
Sure. The first thing I'd say is that just to give these graduating seniors just some comfort that are probably overwhelmed by it and when to apply for it and all that good stuff, and just to maybe share my story, and then maybe they'll start to realize that they're in a good place. Some of us were not in a very good place because keep in mind we graduated middle of the pandemic. People were being laid off left, right, and center, and it was pretty bad. And at that time, like, I was not at all interested in going to work. It was only after like the grad school stuff had also been affected by COVID, because my interest had been to go to like grad school during that time. So I had to pivot. And I will tell you this, my OPT application, I sent it first week of June. This is a matter of fact. I sent it first week of June. Started applying seriously for OPT June. Got my job, I think, in August. Started in October. It probably took the OPT at that time took like I think probably 6 weeks to get to my address, so that was pretty good. And the other thing that helped me is that once I had the job, they literally asked me when can you start, and the fact that once you have that card, like you can literally start anytime. It's not like it creates a bit of a challenge when you apply for a job and they're like, yeah, we'll take you, and then you tell them about OPT and waiting for that, and you may lose out on opportunities based on that. So that was like the biggest thing. So if someone out there is stressing about it on if I apply in April, it's going to be late. It's not too late. I hear now everything is e-file, like e-file, you do everything online. So it might be even easier now than it was during our time. So no one should be stressing out there. The one thing that I'd actually tell people is that when you're applying for a job, it shouldn't be because like it's high pressure because you have 90 days to find a job post graduation, and there's a lot of pressure there. What I tell people is that if, for example, during the summer you're still looking for a job, don't look for a job 2 hours a day. It should be 8 hours of your time, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. That's how serious you should take it, because you never know what can pop up. You can think that if you apply to 5 jobs, 9 out of 10 times the students that graduate out of college don't have full-time experience, and a lot of people that are hiring are looking at for at least 1 year of experience. So you need to look deeper into that, and the fact that you're an international student also plays a critical role. So I think it's important that you spend a lot of time throwing applications left, right, and center, and just applying as much as you can, because that will certainly help you.
And let me I think Nkosi did a really great job at trying to raise the hope, raise the spirits. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to dim it a little bit just because there's another side to it. Like OPT stands for optional practical training, so it's not a guaranteed thing. It's not. No one from the U.S. government, Homeland Security, is expecting your application. Like, they're not waiting for internationals who've graduated to apply for OPT. There's like a space of time where they're expecting some applications, but if they don't get it, they're fully expecting you to leave. And if you don't leave, at some point they're going to start looking at the records and start asking questions like, "Hey, where's this guy? What's he doing?" So there's that to consider. Like, as much as you may not want to apply for it until you get a job, there will come a time where you just have to go. Like Nkosi said, he applied June 1st. That's pretty much, I'd say, yeah, June is like, I'm not saying it's like the absolute last time, but like, yeah, like you should have your application in by June 1st. If you're really pushing it, maybe July 1st, but around that time it should be in. Next thing I'd say is I actually want to ask you a question. You said you'd done an internship, right? How would you describe your relationship with the company you did your internship with? And is that a role you would envision yourself doing in future, moving forward?
Yeah, so it's something that's in the pipeline as well, because that was my aim, to be honest. I wanted to go into a role knowing that there's that chance, and I think most of the time these people, whenever you do a interview, they ask if you have questions for them, and I think I always ask, what's the potential of any career growth or development? So that's where I usually try to get a sense of, okay, do these people, even before you start, is there a chance that they see like some long-term opening for you? But then once you know that there is a chance, you go in there and then you try to prove yourself, right? And make sure that you try and open up that options. So yeah, it's some stuff that's in the pipeline for sure, but that may not be the case for everybody, and I think it's important for us to go into that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I asked that question because I think, I mean, I didn't have any internships when I was in college. Something which I low-key regret, but also low-key kind of don't, it kind of worked out great for me. So, but having an internship is important because you get to build that relationship beforehand. And it makes you transition into the workforce very smooth because you've done the job that you're going to be doing. You've already met the team members you're going to be, interacting with. You already kind of have a sense of how the company runs. So for you, that transition, once you start working, is like seamless. And the only things you have to focus on is like where you live and paying rent and grocery shopping and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't do that, then it kind of goes over to the next part where it's, what Nkosi was really talking about, where that 8 hours he's talking about applying a job, it's not just 8 hours of LinkedIn hitting easy apply, like 100 times an hour. Like that's fine. I guess something will hit at some point. If you send out 10,000 applications a day, I'm sure one will come back and be like, hey, do you want to interview? But it's really the art of the job search is really like researching the companies that you want to work for and identifying companies that do a specific they have a specific product. Maybe they for example, I'm a programmer, so I was looking for companies that use a specific language. This was JavaScript. You would want to use JavaScript and React. Looking for say right now there's this whole debate about hybrid, in-person, remote. Maybe you want to narrow your search, you want to be like, hey, I want to live in New York and there's no negotiation. So you just want remote or New York jobs. That could be your filter and you just focus in on companies like that. Or maybe you're more like, hey, I want a company that helps me develop a certain group of skills I have because I'm thinking about long-term about grad school. I want to do this next, and I need this company to help me to be that stepping stone to that. So that 8 hours in a day is really time to research and learn and figure out as much as you can about the companies that you look up. Because yes, you can spend 8 hours submitting 1,000 applications, or you could spend 8 hours submitting 4 that are very well thought out. You have a brilliant cover letter, resumes that are exactly tailored to what they want. Everything looks good on your end, and they see it and they're like, hey, this guy's perfect. All those companies look at you like, this guy's perfect for us. And that ends up in more opportunities. So yeah, I think those are kind of like the two things about having an internship versus not, as you're looking for a job.
Yeah, just kind of building up on what Samson's talking about. I love what he's saying, because when Nkosi was saying about 8 hours, I think whenever you're doing this, being intentional is number one. First of all, where do you want to live? When I was a Luther in Iowa, I knew I did not want to be in Minneapolis or Iowa. I knew that for a fact. So I knew I wanted to be in DC. And that's why I was looking for jobs. I was looking everywhere, but I knew that, like, okay, I want to be in DC, and that's why I applied. So you need to know, kind of have an idea of where you want to be, because that will help your job search. Number two, what Samson was saying, researching where you want to work, what kind of job you want to do, and like finding out about that. And then once you know where you want to be at, go on LinkedIn and like just send a bunch of requests to people who work in those places and set up like some informational interviews with people. Like that's just like a way that maybe that person can end up vouching for you actually when you apply for that job, or that conversation can lead to something else that could be helpful. So that's another second thing that I would say. The third thing that I would say is alumni network. If you know there's another alumni from your school that's in the same field as you, reach out to that person, either on LinkedIn or whatever social or whatever platform you can. reach out to your alumni. If there's like an alumni pool, go to your alumni office. If there's like alumni usually are gonna help you. Sometimes I got my first job through an alumni connection. And like I met with this person, she gave me some tricks. She was like, apply here because of what you're interested in. I applied, I got the job. So it worked out for me. So I would say like those are the three main things. Like just be intentional about where you want to live. Informational interviews are helpful, and like they don't. It's not like a door. Like it just helps you like understand more of where you're going, because hey, you know, you don't want to end up in a place where you hate. So if someone you talk to can help you, give you like more of an idea of where you're going. And number three, reach out to your alumni. That's helpful. Don't stress about internships. I didn't have an internship at all in my 4 years of school. I know someone who was interning almost every year, you know, working through the summers. I mean, people's situations are different at the end of the day. Like, I understand that. For me, I didn't have to do it, and I'm okay. Like, I'm fine. For some people, they have to have internships just to make sure like they get either extra money, extra experience. So I get it. So I think I'm also just trying to say like, hey, run your own race. Like, don't look at other people and like, hey, I see Metembe went to Mayo Clinic for internship. What am I doing with my life? Nah, man. Like, that's for him. If you are fine and you're happy not doing that, and like you think you're gonna be secure, by all means do that. Like, I think that's the only advice I have. Metembe, do you have any questions that you'd actually like to ask us as a group?
Yeah, I think I had a few, but you guys have really covered a lot there. And I think the important being the fact that, you know, like, yeah, there's fundamentals, right? You trying to make sure you get your dates right, you trying to get your filters right, and you're trying to make sure that you find yourself in a place that you'll really be comfortable and so on. But also acknowledging that there's no formula, right? Most of these things, as you said, someone might do this and it doesn't work out, but then for someone it worked out great, you know. So, but I think going into the specifics of the O.P.T in itself, my question was, how flexible is that condition that it has to be within your major, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of things like, but did any of you guys do natural sciences, or you were mostly on programming and computer science?
I don't think any of us did natural sciences. I think Mutsu did economics.
I did economics, right? Yeah, I did econ.
And of course, he did data science. I did computer science. So, yeah.
But I will say though that, yeah, I was just saying that with my econ, the job I ended up doing was kind of related, but it's just also the way you frame what you're doing. I don't know if that relates to the sciences, but if you can spin it in a way that like, this is how it relates to my major, you know, it can be a reach, but if it makes some sense, I think you can I think it's a little bit more flexible than what we expect it to be. It's not as like someone is not really sitting there looking at you like, hey, you have to be in this box. And if you're not in this box, you're not gonna, I don't think it's that deep. I don't think anyone in the government is really looking at you like that. And if they are, hey man, but I don't think they are. I don't think they'll look at it.
What I'd also say is that it's actually, over the years, it's actually become more broad. So right now it's quite, it's funny you mentioned natural sciences. I did go through the list extensively, and just to see like how it's so broad now and what they consider STEM eligible and not STEM eligible, and just O.P.T in general. I think it has to like have some elements of what you did in undergrad, not 100% on, if you did accounting, for example, you have to go to work at EY, but you can do something along the lines of more in other divisions, maybe in industry. Same thing goes from computer science. Maybe you get to industry and you don't like computer, working as a software programmer. You pick up like a data architect role or some other role that is within that same sphere. As long as it's within the same sphere, those core skills and core technologies, as long as you apply those, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Are you applying those skills? It may not be all of them, but are there like 2 or 3? take for example for my role, like right now, I learned a plethora of skills, but technical skills, but I only used 2 or 3 of them that I learned in college. So that goes to show that even if you have an array of 10 skills and you use 3, that's more than enough.
And just to add on to that, one thing you have to always remember is that you are, being sought after by potential employers. Like employers are looking at people with your skills to fill a particular role. And if they think you have the skills for a role, you think you have the skills for that role, then that's it. They will do whatever they can to make sure you're doing that role. Because at the end of the day, when the O.P.T paperwork is filed, you actually have to explain, on paper, how your job relates to your major. And if your employer wants you around, trust me, they will explain. They will say why that bio major and why this class here and why that applies to what you do on a daily basis. And that's just all it comes down to at the end of the day. Your interest in the job and the employer's interest in you as a candidate. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones that I had, and but mostly with regards to your guys' own O.P.T applications, I think there's also the issue of that 3-year span or 2 years for some, and what more can you guys maybe share with myself and anyone who could be listening? Like, what are those options post that 2 or 3 year span? And have you guys gotten? I know Muta, you must be almost there. And what options have you explored?
Yeah, this is a good topic, because here's the thing. Like one of the biggest issues I have with colleges and the information resources that they don't give us as international students is like the game plan, the blueprint of kind of, not the blueprint, like just like a map of, okay, for example, I didn't have the 3 O.P.T, but right now, like I had to leave, right, the USA, because my company doesn't sponsor, and like things are just happening, and like I ended up having to leave the USA. Went to the UK, and now I'm like planning on going to Canada. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. But a lot of people find themselves in situations where your O.P.T finishes, grad school you haven't got it in, and you have to go back home. For some people, going home is not that bad, but for some, it's not the best place to be, right? And you have to make a plan. So if I were you, or if I was a student, and you have a game plan, and also it's very case by case, like depending on your situation. If you want to stay in the USA, and that's your game plan, I would say it's very important to apply for a job that like this company sponsors H-1B visas, number one. Because if they do, then you have a chance. And if the company does sponsor H-1B visas and you get in the company, by your second year, you should try at least have conversations, because H-1B applications only happen in, like the draws only happen in March. I think they happen twice a year, and the pool it's at random. It's also not a given. So you want to give yourself as many opportunities as possible. So if you have at least two chances, like in the second year, if you don't get it, at least you can try again in your third year. That's the thing. So like that'll give you an opportunity. And if it doesn't happen the second time, you can at least go do a master's, like start applying to schools to go to a master's degree. I know that with some degrees, you can do CPT, you can still work as you're going to school. I know some people are doing that. That's an opportunity. Or there's some degrees that will like fund, your school or your job. Some jobs fund you as you go to school, and like then you have to work for them for like a few years. That's another opportunity. What I would say is, if that's not looking like it's for you, start looking outside of the USA, like Canada, for example. If your O.P.T is going to finish in 3 years or a year, I would say maybe start applying for some colleges in Canada, because first of all, they're cheaper than the USA. Secondly, in Canada, if you go for school, especially for a master's degree, that's 2 years, you get O.P.T for 3 years. They allow you just to work for 3 years. And in your second year, you can apply for permanent residency. So once you're in Canada, you're pretty much able to stay as a permanent resident. And then after 2 years of your permanent residency, you can apply for your citizenship. So if you don't want to go back to your home country and you want to kind of like live out here in the West, that's an option. So you have to start thinking ahead a little. So I would say that's the advice that I would give to somebody, because you can save yourself a lot of time by thinking about those things. And it's case by case. It depends what you want out of life. It depends where you want to live. It depends what your degree is. But if you understand the USA, H1B, get yourself in that and make sure you apply for a company that sponsors, because that's important. And give yourself as many years in the pool. If you've got 1 year of OPT, start looking at grad school outside of USA. You can look at Canada or the UK, or maybe your company will sponsor you right off the bat. Or if you want to, go work for I think there's some nonprofit organizations. So for nonprofit organizations, H1B there's no cap. They can, if you apply, like if you work at a school, for example, like a college, they apply for you get it, because it's a nonprofit organization. So for them, it's different.
So I'll speak to just a couple of things. Firstly, the OPT, like the initial OPT, be it if you have a STEM degree or just a non-STEM degree. What that 1 year, once you have that job, you have the OPT and you're working, what that 1 year gives you is time to actually plan out your life, like what you want to do the following year. That whole year is like a whole period where you can plan on. If you want to go to grad school, you have enough time, sufficient time to actually do the research on what school you want to go to, what you want to study, where you want to be. There is that time. Even better when you have 3 years where you can pretty much do the exact same thing, plan out over 3 years and look at options on, if the company says, okay, we'll do sponsorship, you do the sponsorship route. If they say, if you want to do grad school, you can also do grad school. So there's that option there. It's pretty much open. It gives you time to relax, forget about the pressures that you felt like in your last semester of college, that stress of looking for a job and stuff like that. Now you have the job, you inside now. Now your next point of call is to actually think within that year, when because the good thing about OPT, you know exactly when it expires. Each individual knows when the OPT expires. You can't ask someone and they tell you they don't know. They're definitely lying. But that's the first thing. The other thing that I want to mention is that even if like you do 1 year of OPT, you apply for grad school, and you don't get in, or you try to do sponsorship and that doesn't work out, and you can take some time and go home for probably a year or two, because what's important is that for a lot of people that and speaking to people that work in like graduate admissions offices and stuff like that, what they mention a lot, especially like if you have a US accredited degree, especially like if you want to try and come back from outside the US, that's much easier than a person who doesn't have a US degree. So there is that option to come back. Maybe it's a year or 5 years later. That option is always there, because the moment you get a US degree, that holds a significant weight across all applicants that apply to different schools. So if you're looking at like a program you're trying to apply for, like in your year after your OPT is done, you can actually apply, and then that gives you the option to actually, if the school does offer like teaching assistantships, research assistantships, or graduate assistantships. So, or even sometimes it's just merit-based scholarships, because they look at your undergraduate GPA. You did your undergraduate in the US. That's already a plus there. So just a couple of things to keep in mind.
Samson, were you planning to add on that?
I think I was gonna go back and just talk about, Mutsa mentioned being very intentional. And I kind of mentioned it before, but it's something I think you always have to just keep in your mind, that no one's gonna beg you to stay here. Like you have, as Nkosi said, you literally have a card. When you get your OPT, it's gonna be a card, and that card is gonna have the day it expires, the exact date, and you are on an F1 visa, and what that means is if you're not studying, and if that card is expired, you shouldn't be in the US. And, you know, if those conditions are met at any point, you know, like the authorities have every single right to track you down and kick you out by force or fire. You know, they have every right to do that. So it's very important to be very intentional every step of the way once you get the O.P.T, even once you get the job, because, you know, remember you're an international student. You know, there's a country you come from and you're here as a visitor, and if you want to stay, you have to be very clear about how you wish to stay and what you want to do, and put those plans into motion as quickly as possible. Because, you know, yeah, I think at that point, because I think when you're in college, there's always I don't know, I'm not sure if you felt this, but I always felt like, for example, like the SICE office. This is the for the listeners who didn't go to Luther College. This was like the International Student Office. It was always like a nice like safety net, you know. Oh, I forgot to fill this in. It's okay. Amy calls you at some point, send it. It's good. Oh, I forgot this email. She sends it. Boom, it's done. Oh, I forgot this. Someone will actually call you and be like, yo, you forgot. And they do it for you and it's done. Like, once you're out of that, it's really on you, you know? And it's like a constant thing. And you soon realize that, you know, because I think it can also be a bit of a scary thing, because we don't really think of, when we're in school, we don't really think of ourselves as pursuing a career or building out a professional life for ourselves, but that's what you're doing. Like, as a student, you're already technically a professional. Like, your professional journey has started, you know, because I mean, as a programmer, people ask me, like when I was first applying, the question was, how many years of professional experience do you have? And I thought I had to say 0 at first, until I realized, well, your senior project counts. Like, you did, like, you know, actual level work, you know, like with your senior project. And I'm sure the paper you write and like for biology will be considered that too. The internship you did will be considered that too. So you're already a professional, and you have to think that and have to believe that, and have to make decisions, you know, with the next few years in mind, thinking, hey, where do I want to work? Where do I want to be? How do I want to progress? And yeah, that next step always has to be on your mind, at all times, really, after you graduate and after you get that job.
No, I agree. I think you guys have really touched on some important stuff, and of course, you know, like trying to sit down and execute these things that we've talked about. You know, it's I mean, it's easier said than done, just like everything else. But we all want to hold that positive attitude of knowing that things will eventually work out. So yeah, I think you guys have covered most of the stuff that I had to ask. Unless Mutsa, you had anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, one thing I do want to hold space for is just to say that, hey man, you know what, being an international student is a lot of work and it sucks. I don't want to sit up here and act like, hey man, this stuff is easy. Like, you look at us, we got here, it was just smooth sailing. It was not. It's a whole lot of mental strength. You know, you feel stressed out, you feel down at the dumps, you feel like, yo, is this gonna work out? And I feel like that's all like it's okay to feel like that, because to be honest with you, no one is holding our hand through this process. No one is telling us like, hey man. So I just want to like put it out there that like, hey, this sucks. It's a rat race out here. You're constantly thinking. Imagine you've graduated college and now you're thinking about working, and as you're in work, you're thinking about, okay, what am I gonna do to stay here? And after that, you're thinking about where am I gonna live? And it's just like a whole thing, man. And it sucks. So I just want to hold space to just let people know that, hey, it actually does suck. Like it does. And I don't wanna, and that's why I'm when I was saying, like, sometimes, you know what, if there's nothing wrong going home. at some point. I feel like it's very healthy to step back and just go home and recenter yourself, because it's a lot, man, that we go through as international students. Like the 4 years of college, you're far away from home, and then after that, you're trying to like be an adult, and no one is helping you out. That's why I wanted to actually like do this episode, so that we can provide a little bit of reassurance that to some degree it'll be okay. Like you'll be fine. Like take a breath. There's some people. I left college without having a job offer. Like I went to DC, no job offer, no nothing. I was like, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna figure it out. Not to say that works out for everyone. I can say I was pretty privileged for that to work for me, because I had a lot of support. But in general, like that's my story. Like I left Luther College, no job, no nothing, went to DC, figured it out from there. I got a job, and then I've just been pushing afterwards. You see, so like, but that's just my case. So the other thing I wanted to say is a lot of jobs train you once you get there. I know a lot of students think like I need to know all this stuff. I'm gonna do the job I'm doing. Let me tell you something. Like I did econ, I got there. I can tell you, I don't know how many econ related things. Like I don't think I've used any theory in any of my job, like as what I did. Right now, what I'm doing is not even something I learned in college. It's something I learned on the job that I realized I was good at, and that's something I'm doing right now, like as a consultant. So, just to say, just apply. Most jobs are teaching you on the job. Like they give you a month. There's orientation that they give you, and they teach you the skills. They teach you the program. They acquaint you with their process, because not every job is the same. So I just want to put that out there as well, that like, don't think you have to be the best of the best, or don't think that you have to have like something. It depends on the job, of course, and the field you're in. But I just want to say that most jobs will train you once you get there. So you just have to make sure that you're your best self, and what's meant for you will work out. That's all I gotta say about that.
The brother here raises some very powerful points, and like just the training aspect when it comes to the job, because in talking to like managers, directors, C-suite executives, people in HR and like different companies, it's when they hire people, it's good to have like those specific skills on paper, but they're not technically hiring those things, because even in an interview, 9 out of 10 times they'll ask you about like just different situations and how you solve the problem. So the main things they're looking for, like your problem solving skills, your analytical skills, your communication skills, these soft skills that people take for granted. That's probably like most of what is looked for in a job, like in a job opening, like in a job requisition when they're trying to hire someone. So you shouldn't think that it's good to know the knowledge, but for the most part, like you're gonna get taught the work, as because like you're going into a new industry, like, or whatever new place you're going into. There's specific processes and work, like the ways in which they work that are like done that specific way, and you need to come in and do it that exact same way, rather than bring your college knowledge that really you hardly use. Honestly, some days I actually feel quite upset. I'm like, oh, back in the day in college I learned this and I hardly use it in my job. Because take for example, I do a lot of data visualization. I hadn't done much of it in college, but now that's like 95% of my job currently. So and that idea of being open to learn on the job, like those first 3 months are actually, depending, it's a case by case thing, as my brother mentioned there, but those first couple of months are really tough, but once you get through it, it's like a roll, like you're just cruising, because everything is just in place. You know everything, you know what you need to do, and it gives you that room to grow within the company, and you build rapport, you build leverage, so that one day if you want to get sponsorship, they know who you are, they know you do a good job. That's the other thing I don't know if people actually take into consideration. It's important to do a good job rather than just get there and just work for the sake of working.
And I'll just add on once again. I think another thing to I guess not really to consider, but to just remember is that you should always validate what you've done to this point. Because I know this firsthand from applying to jobs, and you apply to like 20, you get like like 5 interviews. They all say no. 2 of them don't say why. The other 3 say it's because they found a better guy. And it's like, oh man, like they really found like there's so many people who are better than me, yeah, and it kind of weighs on you. And it's very important to like just remember that you have done the work that has put you in this position, that you're visible to these companies. And you should also you should try and carry yourself with that level of confidence, because I truly do feel, and this is like away from like all like the technical stuff. It's more like just things that like in life, just how things happen. I feel that it's very rare that you go into a situation feeling extremely negatively about it and it turns out the opposite. Like, I think it's very rare that you say, for example, you think every day, constantly, as you're applying to jobs, as you send your applications, oh, this is not going to work. Oh, my resume sucks. Oh, that cover letter was horrible. Oh, those candidates are better. It's very rare that sort of like attitude manifests itself into anything positive. If anything, you end up making more mistakes. Maybe on your resume, you put down something you shouldn't have. Maybe on your cover letter, you make tons of spelling mistakes that you totally miss later. Like maybe you miss a deadline to send an email or something. Like these things always kind of weigh you down, usually. And it's very important to like always try and remember and give yourself that level of validation that, hey, I do belong, I am good enough, and I have done enough to earn this position that I'm applying for, and truly believe that you're going to get it, because that also comes out in the interview, like Mangoro said, because in the interview, he said there's technical skills they're testing you on. It's also vibes. People they want someone who they can work with, someone who they can talk to, someone who they would like around the office, someone who they want to see at the company retreat. They do not want you there if like every moment with you, it just makes them tense up, makes them feel uncomfortable. You could be the smartest man in the world, have all the qualifications, and because again, you should remember the position you're applying for. If that's a CEO they're hiring that's doing that, maybe they'll deal with it. As an associate, an entry-level person, you make them feel like that, they're going to be like, no chance. I'm off to the next one. Give you the next smartest person, someone who's a grade point below, but makes me feel more comfortable. Give me that guy. And that's another part of it. So really make sure that you are happy to go where you're going, and that joy and that enthusiasm kind of shows out as you're applying and interacting with these people you're applying to.
Yeah, I agree. I think the mental gymnastics of it all is it's always, it gives you a run for your money, but at the same time, going to a place where like your character and your personality is going to be nurtured, because I remember the spot that I had a gig at, and my then boss was interviewing somebody else for a potential role. So after we went to lunch with that person, then we came back, and her first question to the team was, okay, how do you guys feel about this person? Like, is this someone that you would spend 8 hours a day with on a daily basis? So that's when I saw that, it's actually important, this aspect of like vibes and energy and the people that you work around, because at the end of the day, if you are not remote, these are the people that you'll be spending most of your time with, So that's very much important. And I think you guys have really touched on some important stuff that's really going to help myself, and hopefully a lot of seniors that will get a chance to listen to this, and as we apply it going forward, because the countdown has begun indeed, and May is around the corner.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's like I always like to say, it's all about the vibes. It's all about the vibes. So, as I'm saying, but anyway, I know you have to go, so we won't hold you down any much longer. Thank you for coming on. We'll definitely have him back, listener. As you can see, He's wearing an Arsenal jersey. So I know the man is about that life. So definitely want to bring him back so we can roast him a little bit more about his soccer and why he's chosen Arsenal to be his team. So we'll definitely
And I'll just say, let's set it up so that you have me back while we're still on a high, and not when the inevitable happens. Because I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for that downfall, and having me at that time, I think it'll be very, detrimental to my mental health. So
that's the time I'd actually want you back. I want you back when you guys have lost. But yeah, don't worry. It's all good. But yeah, we'll let you go at this point. Sanyi Samson, thank you very much. I think we tried our best. And the last thing I'll say to all the seniors out there, you only need one shot. You only need one yes. That's all you need. One comment to say yes will take you. And that's it. That's really all you need. You don't have to have 1,000 yeses. You just need that one. So whenever you feel like ish, just know you just need one. Just one and you're done. So that's the last thing I'll say about that. But anyway, I know you said your battery's dying, so we don't want it to shut down. So
that would be anticlimactic.
It would be anticlimactic, yeah, because
thank you guys for having me. And this is, I think most of the time you'll find that in previous generations, people don't have some people who are willing to sort of like put your hand around somebody's shoulders and be like, yo, let me just, share something that's happened to me and that could help you out. So you guys keep doing what you're doing and keep the podcast going. We are listening, we're listening. So don't tire. When I was doing mine, I always thought at the back of my head that what if nobody's listening to what I'm saying? But as soon as I stopped, people were like, why did you stop? So you guys keep going.
I know we appreciate that, Baba. Samson Kosi.
Easy. Thanks, September, for coming to the First Brothers podcast. We always enjoy having different guests here. Hopefully what we've shared today is going to be of value to you and of the next student or the next senior, the next junior, the next sophomore, the next freshman. I think this is just as I always mention, this is an educational platform. We come here to educate, share insights that could be useful for you. And for all the listeners that don't know, I mentioned a podcast. I was probably one of his first guests on his podcast. So that's where it all started for me. I was on Mutembe's podcast back in the day. It was an interesting chat that we had back in the, I think it was 2020. So if you're interested in listening, go in and listen. What a great episode. So yeah, just for all those listeners that didn't know.
Yeah, like my brother said, great having you here, my guy. Ongoro Mutsa, always great recording with you, brothers. Matemba, please, you're welcome back. That elephant has been on the tree all year. It has not fallen. People keep preying on its downfall, but it's up there. It's up there. It's chilling. It's having a bite. It's drinking some water. It's having a good time.
For sure.
And yeah, it's also great having another media personality join us here on the pod. And we'll be sure to include a link to your podcast in the description too, so that our listeners can also check you out and hear what you have to say. So we can all grow together. I mean, we're all Forest brothers, we're all in this. We all gotta grow, all gotta progress. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to be here today, my guy.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, listener. We'll catch you on the next one. So peace out.